What? How? After 8 years? It's not my father. It's his ghost.
Hello, welcome to the very first video lesson from English So. I'm Sra Magdi and I'm so excited that I'm here. Today's episode is going to be about A Tale of Two Cities. It's a historical novel published by Charles Dickens in 1859. First of all, we're going to recognize the important characters of the story, then we'll talk about the plot, and don't miss our question at the end of the episode. Now, let's meet the characters.
The first character is Dr. Alexander Manette. He's a doctor from France who was imprisoned in the Bastille for 18 years. He suffers from mental trauma from the experience. After being released, he's nursed back to health by his daughter Lucy in England. Lucy Manette, a beautiful young woman recognized for her kindness and compassion. After being reunited with her father, she cares for him and remains devoted to him even after her marriage to Charles Darnay. Charles Darnay, a French aristocrat who hates his family. Darnay renounces his family name and moves to England, where he works as a tutor and eventually marries Lucy Manette. Sidney Carton, a lawyer who looks like Charles Darnay. Mr. Jarvis Lorry, an English banker and a loyal friend to the Manette family who shepherds the family out of Paris after the doctor's release from prison. Monsieur Deforge, the owner of a wine shop in Paris. Madame Deforge, a hard woman who's married to Deforge. Miss Pross, Lucy's nursemaid. Mr. Stryver, a lawyer who employs Sidney Carton. Monsieur the Marquis is Charles' uncle, and he's a greedy and mean aristocrat. Now I want you to look at this character map and focus well. We have here Mr. Lorry or Mr. Jarvis Lorry, who is a close friend to Dr. Manette's family. When I say Dr. Manette, I mean Dr. Alexander Manette. Dr. Alexander Manette's family consists of Dr. Manette and his daughter Lucy. You know well that Charles Darnay marries Lucy Manette, and Sidney Carton is a lawyer who loves Lucy Manette as well. Also, we have Miss Pross, who is Lucy's nursemaid, and don't forget the Deforge family that consists of Monsieur Deforge and his wife, Madame Deforge, and they're owners of a wine shop in Paris.
Now let's know a lot about the plot. The story takes place in late 18th century London and Paris. The oppression that nobility inflicts on common people makes life even tougher for them.
The rise in action starts in 1775, when young Lucy Manette from London meets Mr. Jarvis Lorry of Tellson's Bank. A Tellson's Bank messenger named Jerry stops the coach along the way and hands Lorry a message. Jerry is instructed by Lorry to deliver a message to the bank, recalled to life. When Lorry arrives, he meets with Lucy and informs her that her father, whom she had thought had died, is actually alive and has been released from prison and staying at the house of a former servant. When Lorry and Lucy arrive at Monsieur and Madame Deforge's wine shop, they meet Dr. Manette, who obsessively makes shows. She and Lorry take Dr. Manette out of Paris. Charles Darnay is facing a treason trial in London 5 years later. Two spies, John Bersad and Roger Cloy, testify against him. Mr. Stryver, Darnay's lawyer, points out that Sidney Carton, his associate, looks exactly like Charles Darnay. Darnay is acquitted. In Paris, Marquis has his carriage drive to the street so fast that he kills a child. The Marquis flips his father a coin and drives out. That evening, he meets Charles Darnay, his nephew, and Darnay gives up his inheritance. That night, someone stabs the Marquis to death. A year later, Darnay tells Dr. Manette that he wants to marry Lucy. Meanwhile, Sidney Carton tells Lucy that he'll do anything for the people she loves. Gaspard has been caught and hanged for the death of the Marquise. Lucy marries Darnay. After a meeting with Darnay, the traumatized Dr. Manette returns to his old show-making routine, but he eventually recovers. Over the next few years, Lucy and Darnay have a daughter, little Lucy, and a son who dies young. The Bastille was stormed late by the Defarges and 1789 by the Paris revolutionaries. They burned the Marquis' mansion as well.
Darnay discovers in 1792 that Gapel, the former servant of his uncle, has been imprisoned. So he travels to France to free him. When he arrives in France, he's imprisoned. Dr. Manette tries to get him out, but he is unsuccessful. It's a year and 3 months before he's released, but he's quickly arrested again. Darnay and a third person are denounced by the Defarges. During the following action, the third person is revealed as unwitting Dr. Manette through a letter. The letter claims that the Marquise raped and murdered the peasant woman along with the woman's father, husband, and brother, who had hidden his sister before his death. Sidney Carton later learns that Madame Defarge is the young sister. Dr. Manette tries to report the crime, but he is captured and imprisoned by the Marquise before he could do so.
The jury condemned Darnay to death. Carton tells Laurie to get the doctor, Lucy, and little Lucy out of Paris. During the Revolution, Carton goes to prison with Barsat to exchange his clothes with Darnay and Dragon. Barsat takes Darnay out of prison and leads his family to escape. Carton stays in the south. Madame Defarge tries to find Lucy and her daughter, but she's killed by Miss Pross, Lucy's guardian. A peaceful and selfless Sidney Carton is guillotined in Darnay's place.
It is the time for our question. What does "I'm not infallible" mean? Thanks for watching. I'm waiting for your answers in the comments below. And remember, I'm not infallible.